faster, go dogs, and I talk faster than any Southerner you have ever met. So, I'm aware of that. If I get to talking too fast, you will not offend me if you say, I need you to bring that down a little. It's very serious. It's a known thing and all that. But anyway, thank you for having me. So Alzheimer's Tennessee, as Ann said, we are not affiliated with the national group, the Alzheimer's Association. What really makes us unique is that we're just local. So we're just in the state of Tennessee. My office is just down the road in Franklin, and I cover 16 counties in Middle Tennessee. And the last slide will show you a map kind of the areas I'm responsible for. But certainly any families that you all might be dealing with. And the kinds of things you would call me for is, hey, this person, you know, they think mom's a little confused, not sure what's going on. Hey, let's call Alzheimer's Tennessee. Or my mom just got diagnosed, let's call Alzheimer's Tennessee. Or we're not sure what to do or where to go or what our next steps are. And y'all know what I'm gonna say, right? Give us a call. Those are all the kinds of things that we're there for families. But the first thing I like to start with in a group like this is, you know, what's the difference between normal aging and dementia? So I hope you guys are ready for this. I'm gonna give you a dementia test. All right, so normal aging versus dementia. Raise your hand if you sometimes forget people's names. Meet somebody, okay. And keep it up. You don't get to take it back down. If you sometimes forget a word or the name of an item or the name of a, okay. If you get turned around driving, you're taking a wrong turn, get lost without your GPS. Y'all live near Nashville, Tennessee. Nobody's gonna admit that you sometimes get lost. Thank you. I stay lost around here without that little voice in my head. How about I forget where you set an item down or where you parked the car? Yeah. Why you walked into a room? Ever do that one? How about you ever make a math mistake? You go to balance a checkbook. We don't really do that anymore, right? The computer does it. But sometimes, like, can anybody still do long division or multiplication? Like figuring out tips? It's kind of hard. But you know, sometimes you make a mistake with math and things like that. How about needing assistance with electronic devices? I'm gonna tell you, I cheat so hard on that one because my son has worked for Apple for 5 years, so I have my own tech support. It's great. Yeah, not for this, but for all things Apple, he's there. Okay, so I don't want you to worry about that. Every bit of that is completely normal, okay? We all have lapses in our memory from time to time. Maybe you didn't get a good night's sleep last night. Your Stephen ministers, maybe a family you're working with is really struggling and it's just weighing heavy on your heart and you can't settle your mind to fall asleep, or you're so concerned about them that it's taken all of your energy, all of your thought processes to help them, to figure out what you can do for them. That'll impact your memory. If you've been sick, that'll impact your memory, okay? If you're too busy, like when you go to the store, you forget where you parked your car because you're rehearsing your shopping list in your head, and then who's the new snack person? She calls you and says, hey, don't forget, we need, and so then you gotta go to the other side of Walmart, and then you walk out the wrong door and you forget where you parked your car. That's all normal, okay? The difference between that and dementia is it something that's happening every day and impacting your daily life? So y'all can all take a deep breath, you're fine, all right? So let's talk about what you really are looking for then in somebody. So when we're talking about forgetting names of familiar people or familiar objects, now they're gonna say things like, you know, that man that talks about the Bible on Sunday. And he went, oh, you mean Pastor, what's his name? Yeah, him. And they'll agree with you all day long because they know you gave them the answer. So you're gonna think, oh, well, they just forgot, they're really okay. They'll do that, they'll agree. Or they'll describe things. Hand me that thing you shake on your food. Oh, you want the saw? Yeah, do that. Right? So they're forgetting those kinds of words, but they're kind of describing it. When they put things in inappropriate places, so you might sit down your keys on your way out the door. In fact, what are the two most common things you sit down and can't find them?
Glasses and keys.
Okay, keys and phone. I heard my keys and my phone. I got a tile on my keychain, y'all. My keys can find my phone can find my keys. My life is just great now. And I push that button often because you get busy, so you're getting ready to run out the door, you grab those and go, oh, I forgot so-and-so upstairs. So you sit them down, run up to get what you needed, come back down, and where did I set my phone? Where did I set my keys? That's just because you got a lot going on. This is different because they'll put things in really unusual places and absolutely will not find them. So you're able to backtrack and kind of go back and find what you set down. They can't do that. They can't problem solve. But they'll also put things in unusual places. So let's say I have Alzheimer's and I'm on the phone talking to my daughter, and as we go to get off the phone, I decide I want ice cream. Well, I'll go open the freezer. I need to get rid of this, so I'll put it in the freezer, take the ice cream out, and close the door. 2 hours later, my family's looking for the phone and they find it in the freezer. Okay, and I'd say that story because true story. That has happened more than once to people that I've worked with. All right, difficulty doing math or managing money. So what happens with this one? Instead of just making a simple mistake, and even on a calculator, I hope that we know math well enough that if we do 4 times 4 and we get 16,580, we go, well, that can't be right. But we use calculators so much, we don't use our math skills as much. But typically, if you make a pretty big mistake, you'll still catch it. What they'll do is put too many zeros. So if they go to write a check or something like that, they'll put too many zeros. If they want to order one thing, they might accidentally put a 0 and order 10. Happened to a gentleman I was working with. The little magazine guys came to the door, college kids, and they're selling magazines. Well, he wants to help this kid out. Right? He's a nice guy. He wrote him a check for $300 instead of $30, and they took it. So I had to work with him and work with that company and try to get this guy's money back. He couldn't pay his rent. So that was rough. But they'll get multiple subscriptions. They'll buy something, forget they bought it. So you might go, and if somebody has 10 of the same thing, that might be a cause to be concerned about them that they're not understanding. When I talk about using electronic devices, we're all of age, well, speak for yourself, Cheryl. I'm of the age that we didn't have home computers and all that. I remember the first Apple coming out, and now we've moved to everybody has a super powered computer in their pocket. So things have changed very rapidly in our lifetime, right? So the iPhone will upgrade, and my son says, just don't, Mom, just don't do it, because he knows I'm not going to know how to do everything then. But we're talking about things they ought to do. We're talking about things like a thermostat. So if you go in someone's house and on a day like this and their thermostat is at like 90 and the house is roasting, it may be a sign that they've forgotten how to use those controls. If the TV, when you go to visit somebody, is always on the stock market channel, unless they were a trader, nobody would normally keep their TV on the stock market channel all day. And if it's at full volume, it may be they've forgotten how to change the channel. And think about what we went from. If you were the youngest kid, you were the remote control, right? You went up and changed the channel and fixed the rabbit ears. And now a remote control has, how many buttons does your remote control have? Like 20, 30? What do those buttons do? Nobody knows. You need power, volume, channel. That's it. You need 3 buttons on a remote control, and there's all those buttons. Very confusing, especially when they will go back in their mind to where the kid was the remote control. They didn't have those. That's all new in their lifetime. And what we understand about Alzheimer's disease is we start losing our short-term memories first, so we hold on to the long-term memory. So a shorter-term memory is this remote control with 30 buttons. A longer-term memory is you get up and go push 1 button, right? So that gets confusing. They're not used to it. So that's something that you can see too. They forget words and get lost in conversation. So that's more like, I'll say Ann and I were having a conversation and she would ask me a question. I'd go, yeah, it was, and I'm looking, and you can see it in their face. They're looking so hard, just can't find that word. It's just not accessible. So language becomes very difficult. They'll start using the same word over and over. I went to see a gentleman one time, and I said, how are you today? He goes, oh, I'm wonderful. And I said, isn't it a beautiful day outside? He goes, oh, it's just wonderful. And I said, your wife said the grandkids just left. Did you have a good time? And he said, oh, it was wonderful. That's what he said. Why? Because he knew that word fit. He had lost terrific, fantastic, great, awesome, fun, beautiful. Couldn't find all those words, but he knew this one word fit in a lot of places. So he would use it over and over. You also will start hearing thingamabobs, whatchamacallits, and things like that a lot, because when they can't find the word, that's the word that they use. At this time, they're also going to start asking the same question over and over, because when you answered that question the first time, it wasn't stored in their short-term memory, so it's not there at all. It's not that they can't remember it, it's that there is no memory. So when something happens to you, your brain takes that experience and decides, is this a working memory, like I only need to know how to do this right now while I'm doing this activity, or is this a short-term memory, I need to remember it for a little bit, because I might have to come back to it, or does it deserve to be long-term memory? So for example, your anniversary, your birthday, your kids' birthdays, those are long-term. Those are things you're going to need to use for a long time. Short-term might be a year from now, you might not have a clue who I am or that I was here. You'll forget because you have different things going on. So your brain can't hold on to every single memory. Imagine remembering every single meal you ever ate or every single person you ever met. It can. So it picks and chooses. When the Alzheimer's brain, though, it no longer has the capacity to store that long-term memory. So it is truly as if it never happened, because in their brain, it didn't, because it was never put on that storage shelf. So it just didn't happen at all. We'll also start noticing a difficulty with sequencing. So sometimes people notice this over the holidays. They go and grandma's always made this delicious pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving and she ruins it. She can't follow the sequence, can't follow the steps. Or maybe you're playing a game, if everybody's always played a game and suddenly they're lost in the game. They can't remember what the next step is. They can't remember that you have to roll this on the dice in order to move to that place. It's gone. They can't do that. And so we'll start noticing those kinds of things as well. So if you know somebody who's been maybe in a bridge club or whatever, some of the other card games and things, they've always done it and they suddenly stop going, that might be something to be concerned about, because it may be they stopped going because they, one, get lost in conversations, and two, they've forgotten how to play the game. Therefore, it's kind of embarrassing for them to go. They'll withdraw. Instead of continuing to go, they'll just stop going. The sad part about that is we know that social engagement is one of the very best things for our brains, and we need to be around other people. It's almost as if God created us for relationship. Imagine, because we know that he did. But I say that to people all the time, and we were never meant to live isolated and alone. So we know for a fact that people who live isolated lives, their cognition is worse, their overall health is worse, their rates of depression are worse. It's like you can pretty much die from loneliness. So I love what you guys do, reaching out to people and making sure you're a sounding board and a resource for them. But we need to try to keep people engaged if we can. Getting lost on familiar routes. So this will be somebody who says, well, we've been going to Brentwood United Methodist. Dad's fine to drive to church. We've been going to that church 50 years. We've been members there 50 years. He can do that. But can he really? Because what we know is going on as Alzheimer's comes on is your peripheral vision changes, your reaction time changes, your judgment changes. What happens if there's, in the state of Tennessee, an orange construction cone in the road? Because that never happens in our state, right? What if there's a detour? What if there's an accident? Can he still do that? No, maybe not, because he can't problem solve and he can't backtrack. He can't figure out, if it's not exactly what he can do habitually, he can't figure out how to get there in a new way. And so people get lost on familiar routes. They get lost in their own neighborhoods. People will pull into a parking lot and sit there until the gas runs out and the car stops, because they have no idea where they are, how to get to where they were going. Sometimes don't even remember where they were going. This one is the one that really gets to families, is having perfect recall of something 30 or 40 years ago, but they can't remember something that happened 2 or 3 hours ago. So go back to that storage mechanism. If you think about me having what looks like a bucket, but there's no bottom, and you come put things in that bucket, they're falling right out. So when you say, hey Cheryl, can you hand me that memory out of your bucket? I'm looking, and there's literally nothing there. And that's really hard for families to understand. That's why I try to stress that with visuals. It truly was never registered in their brain, so they can't access it because it's not there. The other big change between everything we talked about that we all do and dementia is it becomes a pattern. It becomes a daily thing. So the actual definition of dementia is that it is a loss of cognitive function over time. So it doesn't come on suddenly. So somebody is fine one day and all of a sudden the next day they're having problems. That's probably more like a delirium. And a delirium, we talk about the 4 Ds here, but a delirium is a sudden onset change in cognitive ability, and it's caused by something. It's caused by an illness, a medication. Women who already have a diagnosis of dementia, if they get a urinary tract infection, it completely changes their ability to function. Men also, but women are a little bit more prone to that, so we see more women with that. It has to be severe enough to interfere with daily activities. The other thing to understand about dementia is it's not a disease. It's technically not really a diagnosis. It's more of a descriptive term. So the word dementia means this cognitive changes over time. So if somebody comes to you and says, oh my goodness, my mom's been diagnosed with dementia, your next question should be really what kind? And what are they going to do about it? Because we need to know which disease process is causing it. So these are some of the biggies, the different types of dementia. There are actually about 84 things that cause this thing that we call dementia. A lot of them are reversible, and that's really good news, because a lot of times people think somebody has dementia and well, that's it. This is just the way it's going to be. About 80 different things cause it that can be reversed if we figure out what the cause is. It's some disease process. It could be a really bad vitamin deficiency, really bad dehydration, honestly, when people drink too much or use drugs, that's kind of a temporary dementia. It's a change in cognitive function, right? But it was brought on by that chemical, so we get that out and it's okay. Delirium is also a sudden onset caused by an infection or medication or something, so that's one that we know will go away. But the 4 main diseases that we know cause dementia are Alzheimer's disease is the most common, frontotemporal dementia is the most rare, and then there's Lewy body and vascular in the middle that are kind of swapping places. For a long time, vascular was the second most common, but the more familiar we are with Lewy body and the more we're diagnosing it accurately, it's really catching up. Lewy body is the one that Robin Williams had. Frontotemporal, a form of that is what Bruce Willis has, and of course we know Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's disease. So see that. So it's really important to find out what it is. This is a picture I never thought I would use to teach about Alzheimer's disease, but y'all remember in 2020, what could you not find on store shelves? No toilet paper. Why? Because it was never put on the shelf. So I use this sometimes to help families, and that's why I share it, because if it helps me talk to families, it'll help you. When they say, well, how can she remember all this that happened long ago? And you're telling me she can't remember that you were coming today? She can't remember I told her I was picking her up to go to church? She can't. Why? Because it was never put on the shelf. Just like, you remember when the toilet paper went on the shelf? Well, her short-term memory is like that. It was never put on that shelf. It's not there at all. But all that stuff from 30, 40 years ago, well, that's like the ketchup or the socks or the apples in the produce section. All that stuff was still in the store, right? For some reason, it was just toilet paper. By the way, that's on my top 5 questions I'm going to ask God when I get to heaven, is why toilet paper? What was that about? You know, it's like so many other things. We could maybe food. Food would have been a good thing to stock up on, but we know what people wanted. When we talk about Alzheimer's disease as well, we talk about living in 2 realities. So when my brain is changing, and if I begin to have delusions and hallucinations and things like that, that is as real to me as the fact that all of us are sitting in this room right now. But what families do is what families have always done. They want to correct me, they want to remind me, they want to show me, they want to prove, they want to give me evidence, they want to show me pictures because they want to bring me back to reality. The problem with that is, I am in reality. It's just not yours, right? So it's really important to understand what is true to me is 100% true to me, just like what is true to you is 100% true to you. But you will get nowhere trying to drag me into your reality. So we have to learn how to operate in theirs. We have to step into their reality. Families have a really hard time with that. You know why? Because you're worried they're lying. I don't want to lie to mom. We want mom to know the truth. I'm not going to lie to her. I'm not going to agree to this thing she believes because that's lying. And we're in a church. Y'all know what happens when you lie, right? But it's not lying to step into their reality. It's absolutely not, and that's a really important message to share with these families and get them connected with me so I can have those conversations, because anytime you try to convince, persuade, argue with somebody with Alzheimer's, you're going to make it worse. You're never going to win that. It's never going to go well for that person. It's going to confuse them, frustrate them, anger them. They're going to feel like you're calling them a liar. They're going to feel like they're crazy or that you think they're crazy. So we just have to learn to operate within their reality, and that's something we teach families to do as well. The other thing to think about is, especially dealing with hallucinations and delusions, is a lot of times it's more about that family member. I'm fine if I think I'm Princess Diana. I'm going to walk around and expect you to curtsy to me and bring me tea at 3 p.m. I'm fine. My kids are going to have a problem because everybody sees mom thinking she's Princess Diana. We can't have people thinking mom doesn't know what's going on. I can't have mom having hallucinations, right? So it becomes more about me than the person with a diagnosis. And that's something important for you guys to know too, that you're dealing with this family caregiver, and of course you can care for the person with a diagnosis too, but that family is really struggling. This is one of the hardest things I've ever seen families go through, and just the loss daily. And they'll be in a state of denial. They don't want to accept that this is happening to their loved one, because to allow mom to have this hallucination and not fix it means I have to accept that I'm losing her a little bit more, and I can't do that. So we need to go fix mama. But there's a story I heard of a woman who would sit in her room at the nursing home, or there was a memory care, and she would talk about these visits with Jesus, and she would tell everybody Jesus came in her room and he sat in the chair and they had these wonderful conversations. And her kids went to the doctor and said, look, mom's having these hallucinations. She's telling everybody that Jesus just comes in her room, and we can't have her doing that, and we can't deal with her doing that, so you need to fix it. So he went and visited with her, and she's happy as she could be. It made her peaceful, it brought her so much joy and so much comfort, and he went back to that family and said, have you ever seen your mom after she has these visits with Jesus? She's so peaceful, she's just glowing. This means so much to her. Why do you want me to medicate that out of her? And I love that. Because what is our response? If somebody is seeing things that isn't there, oh goodness, let's go get an antipsychotic drug. Why? It didn't matter. It doesn't matter if I think I'm Princess Diana. It doesn't matter if she thinks Jesus is literally coming into her room and sitting there talking to her. Now, it does matter if I'm in danger, if I think I can fly, please intervene. If somebody is doing something and they think it could cause harm to another person, it could cause harm to themselves, then we really need to intervene. If I'm really frightened by my hallucination, if I see snakes all over this room, please help me. If I see butterflies flying around, let me have that. They're beautiful and I'm smiling and that's okay. But if it's snakes, if I'm really anxious and upset and frightened, then those we do need to intervene. So there is a time for medication for hallucinations and delusions. It's just not every single solitary time. But helping families understand that. Let's look at how this is impacting mom. You know, yeah, she's saying these things that aren't true to us, but she seems okay with it. Maybe it's okay to just let her have that, you know? So I love to talk to churches, and we do work with churches, so again, thank you for having me out. But we'd like to talk about what you guys can do to support families, because sadly, I hear people say when their husband got diagnosed, their brothers quit coming around, their friends quit coming around, and even the church quit coming around. So I love to share with you, because it is a difficult thing to step into. It's very emotional. So I want to share with you some of the things that families have told me that would really benefit them and what they need. So first, just think about how that person might be feeling. And these are some pretty common feelings we've all felt at one point or another, but the Alzheimer's caregiver is feeling all of these all at once. So they're not going to ask you for help, because we're good Southern women around here and we don't ever ask for help. And men, you don't ask for help because it would mean you're weak and you can't take care of your own family. So asking for help is a big thing. So learning how to give people the things that they need without them asking it's quite a skill for you guys. They're definitely feeling overwhelmed. Being an Alzheimer's caregiver is exhausting. They're scared to death. They're so afraid. They feel so lonely, because when you become a caregiver and you can't just put that person in a car and go, suddenly they're not coming to, do you still have Sunday school or small groups? You still have Sunday school?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's so cool. Nobody has Sunday school anymore. So they can't come to the Sunday school class anymore. They can't go to the socials anymore. Maybe they were one of you and they can't come to these meetings anymore. So they're feeling lonely. They're feeling isolated, because it is a full-time job. If they ask anybody for help, they feel like a burden. They've told me, I've just forgotten. I mean, this happened to us, and everybody we were connected with just fell away, and I'm doing this all by myself. It's like they've forgotten about me. They also feel like if they allow somebody to come in and help, that they're breaking their vows. And believe it or not, I've had to counsel a number of families, and the men especially, that would say, I made a vow, that is my wife, I will take care of her. And I say, and you have. You've done a beautiful job, but let's talk about this. I've read that vow. It doesn't say all by myself until I wear myself completely out and I can't do it anymore and not accepting help. That's not in that vow. You know, that's what we were made for, community. Church is our community. But oftentimes people won't allow you to help them because they feel like they're letting their spouse down. They also might feel jealous or envious if you are going on you know, maybe you belong to a group and you're the ones that are going on mission trips, or you're going on just a fun trip all together, and they can no longer go and do those things. And you know what, it's okay to feel a little jealous and envious about those things. And I tell them that too. Those are normal feelings. Feelings aren't right or wrong, they're just feelings. So it's what you do with it after that, right? So it's okay to feel jealous and envious. So don't be surprised if they say, I'm just so jealous, I can't go visit my grandkids in California, and all my friends are doing that, and I can't, I'm here doing this. It doesn't mean they don't love the person they're caring for. They're just expressing, hey, this is really hard, and it is. And then they feel guilty because of all those other feelings up above there. All of those will lead to a great big huge dose of feeling guilty. So what do they need from you? Well, first and foremost, compassion. They just really need, they just need you to care. And that's what, again, Stephen Ministry, you're so good at that. But they just need that compassion. They need some additional patience. You might have to ask them if you can bring them dinner 10 times. Keep asking. Or maybe stop asking and just show up. Just call 5 minutes out and say, hey, just want you to know I'm about to drop off this extra pan of lasagna because we can't eat it. No, just show up. Because 99.9% of us are gonna say no because we're hard-headed, right? If somebody offers to help, why do we do that? How would I bring you? Y'all can bring me the lasagna. But, hey, I'm gonna drop this off for you, or what do you need? I don't know what I need. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they do need that compassion, but that patience. If they tell you no, offer again. If they tell you no, call again in a week. Because sometimes they don't know. They're so overwhelmed. Friendship, they need to know that you still care. They really do. And people say to me sometimes, well, hey, we go visit, but what are we gonna say to him? And I'll go, there's no script. Just be there. Just be there. Well, he's not gonna, okay. But what's the purpose of going? Your purpose in going is just to let them know that you love them and that this church loves them, not to have the perfect conversation. But I get tickled when people say that, well, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. Show up with a big basket of goodies that you know they like or whatever. They really need to know that you're not going to abandon them, because it happens a lot. It happened to me personally when I was going through a really, really rough time. My mom was dying, and I felt like my church family just wasn't there. So I really identify with these caregivers when they say, we were going through this and people quit calling and they quit coming, and I go, yeah, that can happen. So I really want to encourage you that they do notice that. So really be aware of reaching out to these folks. They want to be included. They can't come to every meeting, every Sunday school gathering, every ladies retreat, but could they? What if one of the ministries was, hey, we're going to come, or some of the men are going to come stay with the husband, and we're going to come pick you up. We've got 2 guys that are going to stay there with Joe. We're picking you up and bringing you to this ladies' luncheon. My goodness, what a blessing that would be, y'all. So they still want to be included. They really want you to remember them. And they also want opportunities to talk about things other than Alzheimer's disease. So ask questions other than, how's Joe doing? That's nice, and they can tell you, they're probably going to make it sound a lot better than it really is. So then say, well, what else have you been doing? Have you talked to the kids lately? How are the grandkids? Do you have any new pictures? Here, let me show you this of my grandkids. Anything else, let them talk about. Mainly, remember to keep them involved, because we know there's study after study, loneliness kills. We know that in infants, if a baby is fed a bottle but is never held, touched, cuddled, rocked, it's called failure to thrive. There is actually my volunteer job when I don't have to work anymore is I'm going to go to nurseries and hospitals and hold babies. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold babies and rock them. And I know that's what my mama is doing, because one of the last things she said to me before she left us was, oh, look at all the babies. Mom's up there rocking babies. So that covers me. So that's going to be, but nurseries, there are kids in the neonatal intensive care unit, and their mamas do not come visit. There are babies that don't get held, and the nurses don't have time to hold them. So that's actually a volunteer job if y'all are looking for something awesome to do. Go hold babies, because they need that touch. Well, seniors need that too. They need that interaction. In fact, we know that they thrive and they do better cognitively when they are engaged, when they are having conversations, being around people, doing things, and staying active. They do better. So they start to withdraw, y'all just keep on pursuing. They really need that. And the church can provide a lot of those opportunities. You can provide the social engagement. Maybe you have classes here. A lot of churches do. Maybe you have art or something like that here, or they can come and interact with children. Maybe you just have your VBS, and maybe they can come somehow if you can help care for their loved one. By the way, I was talking to Ann earlier. You guys do have an amazing program here, the Sunny Day Club. If you have never checked that out, please look into how you can serve them. That is a lifeline to the families I serve. An absolute lifeline. That 4 hours a day, it's just a life changer for them. So thank you for being a church that hosts that. These are some things to understand. Number one, I understand. That sounds so sweet, but you don't. And unless you, I like you. But he's giving me all the positive feedback right there. But unless you are also an Alzheimer's caregiver, you don't. And guess what? Even if you are an Alzheimer's caregiver, you still don't. Because everybody's situation is different. Everybody's thing is different. People say to me all the time, oh, when people get Alzheimer's, they just get mean. I go, why would you say that? Some people do, but some people are just more of what they already were. And guess what? Some people who were mean their entire lives become the sweetest, most loving people. And I have had 3 daughters say to me, this disease in some ways was a gift, because my mother had never told me she loved me. She had never told me I was beautiful. She had never told me she was proud of me. And they got that from their mothers in the last years of their lives because of this disease. No, it doesn't always make people mean. But saying we understand can be belittling. So be honest. Say, I can't imagine what this is like. I've never been an Alzheimer's caregiver, but I want you to know I care. And I'm here for you to listen, because that's the truth, right? Telling them what to do. So people, very well-meaning, love to give advice. A lot of times it's the caregiver, the family member that lives like on the other side of the country and never has anything to do to help take care of mama. They have the best advice. And they love to give it. So I just tell families all the time, just let it go. What we do is, when we don't know what to say, we tend to fill that gap with something. Maybe we heard something on the radio, saw something on TV, saw it on the cover of National Enquirer at the grocery store. Oh, did you know olive oil cures Alzheimer's? So telling them what to do or how you would do it or what they should, ought to, all that, not helpful. We also want to be very careful not to treat the person with Alzheimer's like a child. There's a lot of discussion out there. How do we talk to them? What's our tone of voice? Now, you do have to talk slower than I talk. You do have to use fewer words, but we don't have to baby voice. We don't have to use that as called elder speak or senior speak. We don't want to do that. We don't want to treat them like a child. However, we do need to have some kind of understanding that they cannot do the things they used to be able to do because their judgment has changed. They don't have the capacity to make decisions and determine if something is safe or not. So we may have to, put some guards in place and help that family do that because their cognition has changed. And then pity. They don't want your pity. That they've told me that a number of times, that people look at me like they just feel so sorry for me, and I don't want that. I just want them to be there. So that's some good stuff from them. Also looking at caregiver stress. So stress has become a dirty word in our country. Like, I don't know when that happened, but you can't say I'm just really stressed out right now, because people feel like it makes you feel weak or like you can't handle it, or caregivers will not say they're stressed even when they are completely worn out. So how to recognize it? Well, if they're always frantic, if they're always fretful and just frantic, if they're very forgetful themselves, they'll say to me sometimes, it must be contagious because I can't remember anything. I say, nope, you are just stressed out and overwhelmed. So let's talk about it. Because when you're overwhelmed, you can't remember things, right? Noticing changes in their physical appearance. If it's a lady that's always come to church in a dress with her hair done and her makeup on, and she's looking pretty frazzled and not put together, she's probably overwhelmed. That would be a pretty good sign. If they start missing services, they're not going to call you and say, oh, I'm not going to be there today because this is just too hard, right? Because that's admitting that I can't handle it. They're just not going to show up, right? So that's one. If they're sick, caregivers get sick and end up in the hospital more often than the person they're caring for. That's a proven fact. So if they start getting sick a lot, they're probably overwhelmed. If you start noticing them having bouts of crying or being more short-tempered than they've ever been before, and weight loss. Sometimes they can't even slow down enough to eat because they're so overwhelmed, and that stress will start getting. So there's just some things to look for. This is one of my favorite books in the world. I mentioned I lost my mom. I was pretty young, and I don't remember the people saying sweet, kind things to me, but I remember several really dumb things that people said. And I know those people were trying to say the right thing. They wanted to fill that silence. They wanted to say something profound and wonderful. But if you've ever lost somebody that you truly love, there's not a doggone thing people can say to you that's going to help at that moment, right? But we try to say it. I'm just going to say the right thing and make her feel better. So I discovered this book several years ago, and I love sharing it with everybody. It's what to do when you don't know what to say. And this is a book I would encourage you guys to get a copy of. It really just gives you some practical tips and ways to help people that are grieving or hurting, because nothing you say is really going to make that much of a difference, but you just being there really can. And that's where I got the idea of don't ask them what they need, because guess what? They don't have a clue. And they're too overwhelmed to even think about what they need. Let us know if you need anything. We all say that, right? But this gives you all kinds of practical ideas to just do without asking. Yes,
could you read the name of the authors?
Oh, wow, can I? Well, yeah. Mary Ann Froehlich, it looks like, and Peggy Sue Wells.
Thank you.
Great, yes sir. It's Helping in Times of Crisis, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Say. Beautiful little book, and gives all kinds of practical little things to do. But generally, if you ask somebody if there's something you can do for them, they're going to say no. They're going to say, no, we're fine, I don't need anything, which really means I can't think right now because I'm overwhelmed, or no, because it's a pride thing. We just don't want people to know we can't handle it, right? So here are some things to do. Just go visit. If you have the opportunity, just call. And again, you might ask if it's okay, but I would just call and say, hey, Sue, I'm going to be over in your area tomorrow afternoon at 4. I'm going to drop by. It's going to be really hard for her to say, no, you can't. If you ask if it's okay, well, no, I don't want to bother you. But if you just say, I'd love to come by and visit, call, give them those phone calls and check on them. as you can, include them. Take them those meals, and again, don't ask, can I bring you dinner, because they'll say no, I don't want to be a bother, but just, hey, I made way too much lasagna for us to eat. I know how much you love my lasagna. I'm gonna run it by this afternoon. Is 5 or 6 better? Because guess what, that's not a yes or no question, right? That's an offer. So that's a way to do that. Sometimes if it's the man that has Alzheimer's disease, the yard might be getting overgrown. And again, don't ask, can I come mow the grass? I know it's hard for Joe to do anymore. Just say, hey, I'm mowing Saturday morning. When I get done with my yard, I'll be at your house. You can expect me around 11 o'clock. And they'll say, no, we don't know. No, I really want to do this. Joe's always been there for me. This is my opportunity to be there for him. Just let them know you will do it. Really caring for the person with dementia so the caregiver can get out is amazing. I encourage you guys, like I said, to get involved in that Sunny Day Club, because it is such a blessing to these families. But learn how to be there for that person so that the wife can go get her hair cut. Y'all know we like getting our hair done. Let her go get her hair done, or get her nails done, or go visit with her grandchildren. Do y'all realize that these full-time caregivers don't get to go to birthday parties or graduations or weddings because they can't take their loved one anymore? So any opportunity, if you know something special is coming up, just ask, hey, I know your daughter's about to have her baby. Have you got figured out how you're gonna get to go see the baby when she's born? And let me help you make a plan for that. And maybe between all of you, you can take shifts and give her that opportunity, because they do miss out on a lot. If you still do recordings of sermons, or I know a lot of them are on the internet now and things like that, but if you have recordings of something, or even if it's a Sunday school class and the teacher said, yeah, it's fine for you to record that and take it to her. Take her that, take her your papers, take them the church newsletter, try to help them be involved. Running errands, again, do you need anything? No, we're good. But they might not have milk, or bread, or eggs, or toilet paper, just like 2020, right? So just instead say, hey Sue, I'm at Walmart right now, and I'm just picking up a few things. I gotta run right by your house. I'm gonna drop you off this, this, and this. And she may say, we don't need those things. Say, oh, okay, well then what do you need while I'm here? Try to get that, and just do it, just drop it by, because it is hard to get to the store. It is hard to get to the doctor. It is hard to get their hair done. And y'all, those little pleasures, I mean, we miss that. During COVID, y'all remember being like, I'm talking to the women, y'all remember when you couldn't go get your hair done? That's awful, right? So we like that. So they do too, but they feel, they're kind of, I don't want to use the word trapped because it has such negative connotations, but in a way they are, they're kind of homebound, because they're that caregiver and they can't leave the person at home alone. So anything like that, running errands, or just call them up and say, hey, I just drove through Starbucks, and I was thinking about the last time we sat here, how much you love that caramel macchiato, so I picked one up and I'm on my way. Can you imagine just somebody dropping off your favorite coffee? That's good stuff. So these are some things to look for as you go out and visit. And I have for you, this is our Helping Hands kit, and a lot of this information is in here. This is a gift we give to churches to help you be prepared. So if somebody in your church does get a diagnosis, you've got a lot of information that you can look through. You've got information they can read, some booklets on being a long distance caregiver, driving, and about 50 of my cards. So if you run into somebody, just go grab one of the, I know because I put them in there. So grab one of those and say, hey, we met this lady, and just give her a call, because she might be able to do something to help you. But when you go visit on the outside, if you're noticing somebody's cars with lots of scratches, dents, or there was an accident and they can't give you any explanation, that's something to pay attention to. If the yard is overgrown, let's say it's a man that's always kept his yard mowed and the flower beds mulched, or a lady whose garden has always been impeccable and it's just all covered in weeds and hasn't been taken care of in a while. Something's going on, right? Oftentimes you'll see the mailbox is overflowing with mail. They're not remembering to go out and get the mail, and it's just falling out. Or several newspapers are in the yard. They're either not remembering, or the caregiver's so overwhelmed she doesn't even think to go out there and pick those things up. Trash all around the yard, anything like that. Inside the home, if it's really messy, if there's a lot of hoarding, a lot of stuff stacked up, bills that are just laying there that probably should have been paid by now, expired medications sitting all around, bills that have not even been opened or looked at. If you can, go kind of take a look at medications and see a refill. If there are things sitting there that maybe are expired, pop in the refrigerator, take a look in there and see what the food looks like, because their sense of smell will be impacted if they're the person with dementia, and they won't know to open something and go, oh, that's a science experiment, and they'll eat it. I had a lady one time that drank an entire carton of egg substitute. Why? It's in a carton, the kind that you do that and then pop out. The label was orange, like orange juice, and she drank a whole thing of it. So things like that. Pay attention to the temperature and the TV volume. We talked about that already. Hygiene. Again, is this person not showering? Are they not caring for their physical appearance like they used to? Do they ramble on or repeat themselves? Or are they just really disoriented? Can they carry on a conversation with you? And this is a person who would have the diagnosis. Do they know like what day and place it is? Sometimes they'll be dressed inappropriately for the season. So it's blazing hot outside, but I'm wearing my beautiful wool suit and my little pillbox hat because I think I look like Jackie O when I wear it, right? But it's way too hot for that. Or the reverse of that is in the winter, shorts and a tank top. And we see people wander away from their houses dressed like that sometimes. We have to find them really quickly because it's very dangerous for them. And then we also talked about that social withdrawal. That's a big one. If somebody has always been an active member here and they're just missing, you don't hear from them, you don't see them, please check on them. It's either a person has a diagnosis and it's gotten too difficult to do those things, or the caregiver is just so overwhelmed she can't even get in the car, or he get in the car and get out of the house. Incidentally, one of the caregivers that I first learned I made a vow from was a Baptist pastor in Maryville, Tennessee, and he still lived in the rectory right next door to the church. So y'all know Baptists, they do the casserole thing. I don't know if Methodists do, but you know, everything can be solved by good casserole in a Baptist church. So all these little ladies are trying to bring casseroles, he would refuse them. They were offering to come and stay with her so he could go to men's prayer breakfast, he refused them. They were offering to come and help bathe her so he didn't have to do that, he refused them. He was haggard, he was worn out. So I spent some time talking to him. I said, you know, Pastor, you got all these people coming over here, and I said, I know you were there for them when somebody died. I know you were there for them when they lost a child. You probably married half of them, and they're all coming over here wanting to do for you. What is it that you keep telling them all no? And he looked at me, he says, that's my wife. I made a vow. For better, for worse, in sickness and in health. He had me for a minute. I said, yeah, you did. And I thought about that, and I went back to him the next week, and that's when I added on. I said, you know, Pastor, I went and read several versions of wedding vows and all that, you know, sickness and in health. And I said, I never found where it said, all by myself, without ever asking for help or letting anybody that loves me step in and offer me some assistance until I wear myself out. I said, with all due respect, Pastor, that's not in there. Let's talk about this. And over time, we got him to start accepting that, but that was his reason. He said, I made a vow. I said, yeah, you've honored it beautifully. Now maybe you can honor it by letting some of these folks step in and help you like you've always helped them. It's a big thing. People will not accept help. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. So if you are working with families, you'll know some of the things we do. First of all, we do have a 24-hour helpline. I carry that with me, actually. So during the day, that's going to ring directly to me. So the cool thing about that is if you talk to a family that has a need, when they call, they're going to speak directly to the regional director in their area. So they're not going off to some other state or going through a call center. We do get to sleep, so if that's the middle of the night or a holiday, then it is answered by Medical Alert. And Medical Alert only takes enough information for them to know what's going on, and then they send me an email. And they say, all right, you're in Nashville, you're gonna need to talk to Cheryl, she'll give you a call back tomorrow. And I have the phone number and just a little bit about what's going on. That way they don't have to keep retelling their story, but we love having that. We also have services for people with a diagnosis. So if you find out somebody has been newly diagnosed, we've got the Memory Café. They meet online, and those people with a diagnosis that get together and interact with each other and talk, and we'll give them fun questions to talk about, like what was your favorite toy as a child or something like that. They do that on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, but then they also found that they needed an opportunity to talk about how they were feeling and what was going on, the hard stuff. Memory Café was for fun. That wasn't the place. So we heard them, and we started a support group for people with a diagnosis. So they've got their own support group now. We also put together the Live Well with a Diagnosis Academy, and that's a series of videos and brochures put together by people with a diagnosis. So this is a doctor out of Knoxville, and he shares, Dr. David Compton, he shares his experience. This is how I told my family. This is how I cope. These are the things that really help me. This is what I do when I'm feeling really bad. And it's just a wonderful project because somebody with that new diagnosis can go and learn from these people, not from me. What they said to us was beautiful. They came to us and said, hey, you've got all these brochures and all these flyers, and Cheryl goes all over the state speaking, but there's nothing from our point of view. We want to tell people what it's like for us. And we went, done. So we recorded these videos and put together that brochure specifically for them. So I have those available at my office as well. We also have a lot of family support opportunities, so you might recognize that great picture. I love it when they stop a Zoom at mid-sentence, that's great. But several years ago we had a project, we had a big grant to do something called Caregiver Academy. So families, sometimes they want to learn, but they may not be able to come for an hour lunch and learn, or they can't leave their loved one, or they can't come to our 8-hour workshop that we're doing in October the 15th. We'll do our caring and coping. They can't come. They said, we just need something brief and to the point. So we said, great. So we had a grant and we wrote the Caregiver Academy. So that's a series of videos that are about 3 to 5 minutes long. You can do that while your loved one's in the bathroom. You can do that sitting at a stoplight, sitting in the doctor's office. So there's a whole bunch of topics there that people can just hop on and get about 3 minutes worth of information. So that's on our website. We also have support groups all over the state. We've got a number right here in Williamson County, and we also have our virtual support groups for people who can't leave their loved one and can't get out. I lead the one on Monday night, and it's one of the best nights of my week. I look forward to spending my evening with these folks. They share so much with each other and just take such great care. So all that, you can find that information on our website. If you know a family caregiver you think might benefit from a support group, you can find a list of our in-person groups as well as our virtual groups, or they can call me. I'm happy to help them locate that. The first thing we do though when somebody calls in is we'll do a caregiver consultation. So we'll start talking. I'll say, hey, do you want to continue doing this on phone, or would you like to meet in person, meet for coffee? If they've got a sister in New York, I'm like, why don't we do this? Let's set up a Zoom call. We'll invite your sister, and then she can ask the same questions and get all the same information. So that's great. That can take 30 minutes. That can take an hour. But we're going to meet that family where they are and guide them through that process. And part of that is finding out where they are, what kind of services they know about, making sure they know about what's coming, what services are available, and we get them connected with resources right here in the local community, such as your Sunny Day Club. I send people over here all the time. We also do a whole lot of education. So this is an example of our Speakers Bureau. We come out and speak to groups. I spoke twice today. Today I was at an assisted living community and I trained their staff. So I got to train about 50 staff members today on how to best interact with people and how to manage behavior. So that was a lot of fun. We have our research symposium coming up in October. That's 2 days of professional information from experts from all over the country, just talking about what we understand about this disease, where's treatment, what's going on in the area of research. So that's really good. I mentioned the Caring and Coping Conference. That's October the 15th. We also do specific conferences on frontotemporal dementia, and we cover the other dementias like Lewy body. So last summer I did a webinar called It's Not Always Alzheimer's, Understanding Lewy body dementia, and it was very well received because we had an expert on Lewy body as well as 3 family caregivers on that I interviewed, and we talked about why is this different, why do people know it's different. This June my webinar was on brain health. So if you want to learn what you can do to lower your risk, we covered that in 2 sessions. It's called Did You Know? So you can find that on our website. We interviewed a lot of experts and we talked about the risk. Does anybody have a family member that's been diagnosed? Have you had anybody in your family? Okay, so you've probably heard a lot about, oh my goodness, you've got a genetic connection, you need to be concerned. I want to give you a little bit of peace tonight because in the webinar that we did on brain health, we had an expert, Dr. James Powers from Vanderbilt University. He's a gerontologist. He told us that only 30% is genetics, and the other 70% is lifestyle, which means there's a whole lot that you can do to control that risk. It's almost like having a switch, but your lifestyle decides whether you switch that on or not, or you flip that switch. So that was really good news. So even if you have that genetic link, call me, watch the webinars. We can talk about all these lifestyle factors that are within our control, and you can lower that. That webinar also talked about brain health techniques that are good for somebody with a diagnosis, because everything that we do to lower our risk is also good for them. Things like movement and music and interacting with other people and pets. And I talked about laughter. Y'all, there's so many studies that show the power of laughter in lowering your risk for dementia. Isn't that awesome? Just go laugh with somebody. It's so powerful. It's so good for you. We also teach caregivers. We teach, I told you, assisted living, memory care, hospitals, nursing homes, like that. We train them. We do the virtual dementia tour. So if you've never done that, we have an experience you can walk through to see as close as we can replicate what it's like to be a person with a diagnosis. A lot of brochures, fact sheets, information. I brought this for you, the Helping Hands kit, and we do a clergy conference. That's the annual research symposium I mentioned to you. And we also do a lot of advocacy. So we go to the Capitol and we meet with the governor, we meet with our state senators and our state representatives and let them know what these families need. And that's how we got the Silver Alert Law passed. So in 2021, we got the Silver Alert Law passed. The year after that, we had a number of law enforcement officers saying, we're getting more calls when they go missing and we're going out, but the families don't have what we need to issue the alert. And we said, great, let's fix it. So we came up with the Silver Alert Kit. So any family in Tennessee that's caring for someone can contact us and get a free kit that helps them be prepared. And in that kit, it tells them these are the kind of photos you need, and do you know the year, make, model of the vehicle, and the tag number, where did your loved one work? Because sometimes they think they've got to go to work and that's where they're headed. You know, are they still driving? What's their medication list? We all have all of that plus emergency phone numbers, and then we also have a safety catalog in there so they can look at ways if they're going to continue to keep their loved one at home, they can make the home safer. That's another conversation we have with families too. They think they're doing the best thing because mom wanted to stay home. We're going to keep her home no matter what. Sometimes the conversation we have is that's really not what's best for her. Let's talk about that. Why do you think that's best? And if she's sitting at home alone all day, every day, she might be happy because she's in her home, but we know from research that her cognition is going down more and more because she's not having that social interaction. And sometimes when they move into a community, they do better. So we talk about that with families too. But any family you know, contact me. We'd be happy to get them a Silver Alert Kit. And then just to share with you how we do what we do. As a nonprofit organization, we're not supported by any state or federal funding. We're 100% supported by folks like you. So folks who believe in our work, attend our walks. I'd love for you as a group to think about coming out and being a part of our walk next year. It'll be March 29th at the park at Harlansdale Farm. We have other kind of fundraisers all year long. So if you follow our Facebook page, I'll give you a handful of cards, but you can follow our Facebook page. Well, wait, we got 50. In there. But you can follow that, always activities we've got going on. If you have an opportunity to share with us or share with others that we exist, please do that because we are completely dependent on folks sponsoring us. Walks, donations, corporate gifts, and then memorials. If you know of someone and they lose their family and they're looking for something to do, say, I don't really want a bunch of flowers, what can we do? Please think of us. We do send them out a lovely thank you note when they make a donation in memory or in honor of someone. And we're happy to recognize those folks. And that is our map. So that big purple area right there in the middle on top, that's me. So I cover about 16 counties. My office, I mentioned to you, is in Franklin, but we've got offices. We started in the Knoxville area in 1983 and expanded, and you can see we actually go up into southwestern Virginia because those counties were coming to us and saying, hey, we need this, we don't have this here. So we said, okay, so we expanded up into southwestern Virginia. I know that we've crossed over into Kentucky and down into Georgia a little bit too. So we just love being able to serve these folks. So I want to present you guys with this. This is one of our Helping Hands kits. You can put it in the church library or wherever you think it would be most found. But I just want to tell you a little bit about what's in there. That's our safety catalog there. But when you go in here, it's got tabs and it's all divided up. So it's got some of that information I mentioned to you about. It's got our programs and services, talks about normal aging versus dementia, things to look for when you go to the house, things to look for in the house, gives you information, Alzheimer's 101, just defining Alzheimer's disease, what it looks like. Lots more information in there. I encourage you to kind of look through this. There's a caregiver stress assessment in there. And then, like I said, in the very back, we've got sheets and sheets of my cards. So if you do run into somebody that you think could benefit from our services, you can have them a card and have them give us a call. And I would absolutely love to answer any questions that you guys have. I appreciate the support from the back row. It's always nice to see a nod or a smile when you're up here. So anybody have any questions?
We've got time for a couple questions.
I have one question.
Yes.
Did you mention that you have a support group for family members on Monday nights?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
It's on Zoom. It's via Zoom. So it's 6 o'clock on Monday night, and you can find that on our website.
Okay.
It may be in there. I actually lead that one, or grab my card and call me, and I'll tell you about it. We do the Zoom ones because we know a lot of families can't get out to drive to wherever an in-person meeting is. So we started offering those a few years ago. They've been very successful.
Does we still have one here at this church?
If you have one at this church, it's not affiliated with us, so I'm not sure. You may, but.
I'm thinking about it.
Dr. Petrie started one
Okay.
years ago and
Yeah.
once a month.
Okay, yeah. So, we start them, there are other folks that do support groups. There's a big group down in Murfreesboro where I live. That's all she did. She just wanted to start family support groups, and she does, and she's great, and we work together. But the ones that we start, that we kind of are behind, would be on our website.
One or two more questions?
So, and I have a friend whose husband has, Parkinson, and it's a very end stage, and the dementia has become a part of their life. Do you all work with those families?
Yes.
Okay.
So we are called Alzheimer's Tennessee, but we work with all of the major dementias. So I work with folks with Lewy body, I work with folks with Parkinson's type dementia, and I work with folks with frontotemporal and all of them. So an interesting thing about that, since you brought up Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia are basically siblings. So if you start getting the cognitive issues and the things about Lewy body, it's very different. You'll have sleep disorders, movement disorders, you will start falling, vivid hallucinations and delusions. That's typically Lewy body. If you live long enough with Lewy body, you're going to develop the Parkinson's symptoms. On the flip side of that, people who are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease first, again, if they live long enough, they will start to develop Parkinson's disease dementia, but it's basically also like a Lewy body. So they're named based on which comes first. But yes, I have a number of families I work with the different types of dementia. I'd be happy to. I'm also connected with the Parkinson's Foundation here. So if they're not, I'll make sure they get their names too.
One more question.
Is that true of MS as well, Parkinson's and MS?
And I'm not a doctor, but in my understanding, MS is a totally separate disease process. So Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia are connected. So if you get one, you typically will get the other. It just depends on which order you get them. But as far as I know, MS is different, and I don't know of any kind of dementia connection with that.
Well, I have a friend who has MS and he does have dementia. And I just wondered if the two were tied together or if they were separate.
I have never seen any research connecting those two, but I mean, it could be just two separate things, just like somebody can have diabetes and heart disease. They're separate.
Well, Cheryl, thank you so much.
Yeah.